Sorry about that, guys. First, the disclosure. I am an associated member of T3 Trading Group, which is an SEC registered broker-dealer and member of Wynn Resorts. You should carefully consider whether trading is suitable for you in light of your own financial condition. Position disclosure, again, nothing has changed here. Nothing has changed here from 5 minutes ago, and nothing has changed here from Friday. Still long this market for obvious reasons. It's a bull market. AMC looks like it maybe just came out, which is my only short, albeit a small short, small on AMC. I want this thing on earnings to either be in the 40s or to be at 20. I don't want this thing to just have a little bit of movement here in the low 30s. It doesn't do anything for me. Either have my position go small against me so I can start getting heavy up there in the 40s again, or have it just go all the way down to 20 bucks, which has been my price target on it. So we'll analyze that. All right. So I guess with that said, let's talk about our game plan from this morning, and let's talk about what the markets did a little bit. So. Very, very boring, choppy price action for the markets. SPYs here are closing at basically flat. Qs here are up 0.2%, and IWM is down 0.5%. So really choppy, boring price action. We had a flat open this morning. You can see here on the SPYs, we basically made our high of the day and our low of the day in the first 10 minutes. Qs had a little bit more relative strength. They were able to make new highs around 230, but there was no follow through. And the IWM had relative weakness. They hit that pretty hard early on in the day. It almost fully filled its gap and went back to flat around midday, just to roll over a little bit in the close down 0.5 percentage point on the day. So again, our game plan this morning was really to have a less is more approach, and that game plan seemed to work perfectly given that the price action was very choppy. We had no gap this morning, and I view the market gap as honestly one of my big trading advantages. So when the market's opening flat, I don't have that advantage. Also, even though it is the tail end of earnings season, you know, after this week things are going to dramatically die down. It is still earnings season, but it's Monday morning. So Monday morning we don't really have many companies reporting. We did have TTD, which was on our radar a little bit today, though it turned into kind of a non-event. The price action really wasn't conducive for what I was looking for there. So we didn't really have too many stocks that we were identifying as stocks that were really in play that we could focus on, which is always the goal. When the market looks like it's set to be difficult, we want to focus on stocks that can trade independently to the market. So we have a big picture game plan for the market today of basically not doing much, which is always what traders don't want to do, right? We always want to be active. And at the same time as that, we don't really have many names that are in play. So overall, what this leads to is one of the smartest things you can do on a day like today is not trade aggressively. Don't force things when they're not there. You know, you want to trade aggressively when the market is providing you a ton of opportunity, and it's, you know, those rare opportunities are there. You can really go after them. The whole market's in play. There was a major news event. There's a huge gap, something like that. And then on other days when the market's not really giving you a big advantage, it's so easy to hurt yourself. Again, you know, you look at the price action on SPYs today, you look at the price action on the Qs today or the IWM. I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to try to day trade these charts. These charts were kind of garbage. Obviously, we know big picture SPYs, big picture Qs are really bullish. So you want to continue to err to the side of the longs in this market environment, but no one to push it and no one not to. And simply put, today was just not a day to push it. The really interesting thing I think about today's trading session, kind of in hindsight more than anything else, is that the speculative stocks woke up today. So even though the market didn't really do anything, the speculation seemed to kind of come back a little bit. First of all, we saw it with crypto. And I don't actively trade crypto. I am involved in the space a little bit. You know, I got some Bitcoin, I got some Ethereum. I don't actively trade crypto. I do pay attention to it, and I really do think that crypto is a great gauge of kind of the animal spirits, right? And we also have this list here in the ProDesk virtual trading floor that we speak about, which is like a list of these speculative type stocks, like these high multiple speculative type names. A lot of them basically had bubbles earlier this year. January, February really, in some ways, marked a peak for the market, I think, as far as speculation goes. And we had all those stocks, I was saying it back then, that had gone up from November to early February. A lot of these stocks are up 200%, 300%, 500%, 700%, and the fundamentals did not justify it, I didn't think, and the technicals basically said that these things were in parabolic bubbles. We were saying it at that time. Then they had massive corrections. I mean, you know, we can look at Palantir as an example. There's a whole bunch of them. Again, we have a whole list. You can see Palantir, you know, peaked at the end of January. Then we literally perfectly called out this bottom on May 11th. Kind of called the top here again a little bit. You know, once this thing was starting to break above 26, we said, you know, this is not the breakout I want to buy after, you know, 100% move in like a month or so. Not the breakout we want to buy. We want to wait for a pullback. Once again, we kind of came in perfectly at the bottom in July and went long again. And it's funny that we were able to kind of call these tops and bottoms so well, because that is not what I try to do. Generally, I think that trying to call tops and bottoms in the market is a fool's game. What we are trying to do here is we are trying to, based on, you know, layers of probability, different layers of probability, based on understanding extension, understanding volume, we try to pick spots where if we are going counter trend, right? If you're going long here in the middle of May, you're going counter trend. It was downtrending at that point. Or if you're going to go counter trend, we're looking for spots where we can identify high probability retracements. Meaning, if you're coming in and you're buying Palantir, you know, at below $18 on May 11th, all you should really be looking for is a move to somewhere between the 8 and 21 EMA. You know, you get a move back to $21, that's all you should really expect. And then we have rules in place for how a retracement higher can actually become reversal. But even with not trying to predict tops and bottoms, we've done a great job of that. And now more recently, it seems like a lot of these speculative names, again, Palantir or Wish or Jumai or B-Fly or Triple D or marijuana names like Tilray, or, you know, from stocks that are a little bit more expensive, Roblox, Snow. So, you know, your 3D printing names, your marijuana names, your crypto-related names like Mara, Riot, MSTR, like all those are all the stocks that we have in kind of that broad speculative list of names that we're paying attention to. And again, the really interesting thing about today, when the indices were really boring, is we got Bitcoin went to, you know, 45,000, 46,000, and all these speculative names really woke up today and had, you know, big days. You know, Palantir's up 5%, Wish is up 7%, B-Fly is up 13%, Roblox is up 10%. So they all had huge moves. I feel like I should have done a better job today, honestly, recognizing that these names could have moved this well today. I didn't. And I should have done a better job recognizing it because I knew what crypto was doing. You know, we were paying a little bit of attention pre-market to, you know, some of these crypto names. But you have to be able to get in from a good risk reward. I did not like the idea of chasing Mara today. BTBT, I actually said should be on the radar for a cute short. I was looking at BTBT to short it when it was at about $20. I didn't want to pay for the borrow. The borrow on this one was a little bit expensive, so I moved away from it. Obviously, you know, with hindsight, I definitely could have paid for the borrow and still made really good money in. It went from 20 to 16, but you know, that's not necessarily the way we want to be looking at stocks, right? At this time, the risk reward plus the additional risk of paying for the borrow just wasn't worth it for me to get involved in BTBT. But again, the most interesting part to me today is seeing these stocks wake up. Palantir kind of clearing a key level here in this 2275 area. Wish, this $10 has been a big level, and then on a more absolute basis, $10.50. This thing had a huge day today. So maybe, just maybe, it's only one day, but maybe these speculative names are starting to come in play again a little bit, and we're going to start looking at maybe some of these breakout levels. Maybe this Wish can stay in play for 10.50 tomorrow. As kind of a general rule, I think everybody knows I don't like buying day twos. and a lot of these stocks had big day ones today. So especially if they gap them up tomorrow, like, you know, I mean, Roblox, we were talking about, I think I even said this literally the other day. I was like, this Roblox is going to end up being back at $90. I'm going to be kicking myself that I'm not in from the mid 70s, because this is where I keep talking about it as being like a real buy area, is like the $75 zone. And it gave 2 opportunities on these tails when it broke at $76 support to really get fabulous prices on this. I'm not going to come in and buy Roblox at $88 tomorrow when it was at $79 today. That's just kind of, that's not my trade. But it's definitely something that these names have to start putting them on the radar again. What I would love, as everyone knows I don't like buying day 2s, I like my stocks to have a setup. What I would love is big day 1, little inside rest day tomorrow, followed by a big day 2 as the momentum comes in, when you have the inside day, rest day, to kind of act as the setup. Whether or not that'll happen is to be seen. It's also interesting to see, obviously XLE struggled a little bit today. Oil, you know, was hit really bad pre-market. We all know gold had like a mini flash crash overnight, and gold was really weak. But some of these material names that are part of the reopening type trade, the reflation type trade, that I've liked a lot. This CLF, I've been in love with this CLF recently, even though I don't have a position in it right now. I thought that last earnings report was really solid. It got back above that 20. This has been one of the most relatively strong material stocks. And then we were talking last week about this descending bull flag pattern that kind of broke out a little bit on Friday and then gave fantastic follow through today. The CLF was fantastic. We're seeing option flow coming into it. US Steel today also really solid. So that's what we want to pay attention to. I do believe that the key to trading in the year 2021 has been all about identifying money flow, relative strength, and relative weakness. So again, just a day 1 on those speculative type names, but interesting to see crypto wakes up a little bit, the speculative names wake up, maybe we can start seeing some follow through, maybe we can start getting some setups in these types of stocks where they can come back and play again. And I would love that, because as much as I was saying that these things were bubbles back here in January, February, you got to be really cautious about them. They can create some really solid day-to-day price action for people who do day trading or shorter term swing trading. I do a solid combination of both, right? I do a decent amount of day trading, but I'll also be involved in swing positions that can last anywhere from a day or 2, like the AMD position last week, all the way through like some of the positions I have on right now I've been in since 2020, because I'm just kind of continuing to get paid in them. So I think that's kind of where we are for the market. I don't really have too much to talk about, because the indices today were pretty boring, and I didn't really have too many trades on my radar pre-market that were on my list that I wanted to jump all over, which is fine. You know, I think a big part of the battle of knowing of successful trading is knowing actually when not to trade. It's one of my big themes. Actually, I have a class I got to put together because it's not currently in my class system. I've got like a group of like 10 or so high-level big themes that I think are necessary for success in professional trading. And one of them is that not every day is created equal. It's one of these things, and I've spoken about it a number of times in the past, where this is a difficult thing about trading, because what you're going to hear from me all the time is that consistency is the key to successful trading. You have to be consistent in your approach. You have to have rules. The only way that you can be consistently profitable is by being consistent in your actions in regard to the market. And the only way that you can be consistent in your actions is by having rules that govern your actions. That is the only way that you can actually create consistent profitability. But then at the same time as I tell you to be consistent with your trading, I also tell you that certain days you need to trade very actively, very aggressively, and certain days you need to be able to go hands off and be more passive. And that sounds like almost the opposite of consistency. But it is still also key to success. On certain days, the market itself is just providing a tremendous amount of opportunity. And if you are passive when there's a ton of opportunity and you're sitting on your hands, you're never going to be positioning yourselves to be able to make a lot of money. But the flip side is also true. When you don't feel like you have a strong advantage with what the market's providing you, then you need to be able to take a step back. Because if you are really aggressive when there's not a lot of opportunity, it's a fantastic way to hurt yourself. It's a fantastic way to churn your account. It's a fantastic way to bleed out money. And I really just felt like today was one of those less is more type of days. And guess what? Traditionally in the month of August, especially once earnings season ends, especially once we get to the later end of August, and this really also applies for the first, second week of September, traditionally I go on a really long vacation, like 2 to 3 weeks, end of August and the beginning of September. I'm actually not doing that this year, I don't think, but almost every year of my career, at least the last 7-8 years, I've been doing that, because it's just when the market action is not great. So you can definitely expect us to probably have a lot of those less is more type of days, but hopefully I'm wrong. And I will be wrong if we see a reawakening of those speculative type of stocks that I referenced earlier. Excuse me. So I guess with that said, I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys have, because I don't really have anything else to talk about. So I'm going to scroll up here on the virtual trading floor to about 10 after 4 and see what you guys got from me. AFRM. I know I asked you about this last week, and I said that it was dead. Oh, you asked me if it was dead. I ask again because it. Okay, so let's do an update on this AFRM. So last week, TJ here in the VTF, after this Coursera failed at 70 on, I think it was this day, asked me if I thought that a firm was dead, like dead money, if we shouldn't go to it anymore. And I said no. I said I think the thing looks fine, but it makes sense that it failed to break out through 70. 70 clearly here is a big resistance level. It tried to get through, I guess that was Thursday last week. It tried to get through 70 and it failed, right? It broke through 70, failed, came back down, and that was it. And he asked me if the stock is dead money at this point. And I said no. Then this is where our extension rules come into play, right? This is one of our layers of probability in trading. When you are buying an extended stock, you have a lower probability of success inherently because the stock is extended. The only way that this AFRM could have really paid you on last Thursday, when you're trying to buy a breakout through 70, but the ADMA, which is what we consider to be our upper band of equilibrium, is at 64. So it's extended by $6 in a $70 stock. It's extended by over 10% from that upper band of equilibrium. The only way that you're going to be able to get paid by buying through 70 is if there's just so much news momentum and volume that I mean, that's how you make money, right? You're purely relying on momentum to pay you. I personally, even though I trade momentum, I don't like to rely on momentum to pay me, because again, you're just buying at this degree of extension, you have a lower probability of success. So what I said at that point was the stock needs to reset up. That ideally I would love for it to just have some consolidation days, ideally tightly below 70, that can allow this equilibrium to catch up a little bit and then give us a reset up through 70. So now TJ's asking for an update. Is it dead now? No, it's still not dead, though I would say this price action is not great. Friday's price action is actually solid. This is actually what you want. Sloppy day on Thursday, pulls back to the ADMA here on its daily chart, gives a nice tail off of it, closes decently, and then today, honestly, I would have liked a little bit of upside follow through, but staying below 70. And that wasn't able to happen. Is it an inside day today, or did it break yesterday's high? It broke yesterday's high. So today's price action is not great. It closed really weak today when the market was sloppy, but it wasn't really this weak, albeit it's on very low volume. Again, still not broken, still holding above this $64 area. That's what you want to see. If this thing starts getting below and closing below 64, then I would say maybe the stock's a little bit broken. But we need to negate this candle from today. We need to get it back above into this range. We need to get this thing to clear $68 and start having a healthy consolidation so that we can set up for a clearer break through $70. So by no means do I think it's broken, though I don't think that today's price action is fantastic either. Let's just keep an eye on it, and if it trades below 64, okay, but if it closes or holds below 64, I think the stock's got a problem and you just want to take it off the list. So that's that. So the AMC numbers got reported. Let me just read this one out loud because it's such a hyped up stock. It reports second quarter, I guess that's a loss of 71 cents versus a loss of 91 cents expected. And revenue at 444 million versus expected revenue of 341 million. So that's a solid beat on both of those metrics, honestly. Curious to see what guidance looks like, or if they issue any guidance. And we got AMC trading higher here after hours. Go bigger, man. I want this thing up through the roof. If it's gonna go up, I want this thing up through the roof. Get me back to 45 bucks so I can start shorting again. Robert here, how can you be short and long AMC through the same account? I don't think you can be. If you short and then you buy shares, you basically put, yeah, Robert, exactly, I agree with you. I don't think you can be. Yeah, it looks like a decent AMC revenue beat. I guess, I've been wondering this. I can't help but wonder if all the AMC pumpers on Wall Street Bets have been going to the movies a ton to try to get their company to do well. Like, I feel like if I was like the same person who is going to the Wall Street Bets Reddit or Facebook or whatever and just being like, everybody's got to buy it so it can go to $10,000 or whatever, I feel like I'd be going to the movies every night and also spending all my money there to try to get the attendance up. Gabriel wants to know what I mean by animal spirits. Okay, cool. So animal spirits, it's kind of like a trading term, a markets term, a finance term, and it basically kind of just defines. So animal spirits, right? Like emotion, like fear and greed, and just like, man, I'm struggling to even define this properly. Like the animal spirit is like you just like beat on your chest and feel it inside, right? Like Palantir moving like this, or oh man, what were some of those other nutty names? Jumai moving like this, or I mean, some of these stocks are just so insane. B-Fly here going from $10 to $30 in a really short period of time. I think Skills, right? Look at this Skills, $12 to $46. This is the animal spirits. The animal spirits make stocks move crazy, right? The animal spirits is greed leading to more greed, leading to more greed, or fear leading to more fear, leading to more fear, and that creates opportunity for us in the market, especially for what we do as technical traders here, analyzing the price action. We want movement, right? These speculative type names being stuck in these really tight ranges here, and it's still moving decent, but these like dollar ranges for Palantir as opposed to these $5 plus ranges for Palantir, we want the bigger movements for the most part. It's going to just breed opportunity. AMC consolidated attendance of 22 million versus 100,000. Brent wants to know who went to the movie theater in the second quarter of last year. 100,000 people. Oh man, it's funny. All right, scrolling down here. Another question from TJ. As I hear you out in the meeting today talking about Roblox and how you strategically enter and watch it to break certain levels, but you also don't want to kick yourself for missing it at the mid-70s. My question is, have you ever considered buying a smaller starter position while in the buying level? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, TJ. And I'm like half joking about Roblox, like I'm kicking myself, but I'm not kicking myself. I have been trading too long to have regrets or to have shouldas or wouldas or couldas in trading. Shouldas, wouldas, and couldas, not only do they not make you money, they cost you money. Because when you start having FOMO and you look at this thing, oh, I should have been in this for $75. Next thing you know, you start trading it like a jerk when it's at $90 because you're just in the wrong headset, the wrong mind space. But I did say back in this area that this is where I thought Roblox was a buy in this mid-70 zone. And I think I even said it on this day when it was having a strong kind of day one, followed by 2 days of consolidation, followed by a day two. On the day one, I was kind of joking, and I was like, oh, I know I'm going to beat myself up when this thing's in the 90s that I didn't buy it in the mid-70s. But the truth of the matter is I'm not going to beat myself up. I made a very conscious decision to not get in a stock that I liked, a company that I liked, at an area that I liked it. That was a very conscious decision for me. And there was a reason. Of course, there was a reason behind it. I had just had too much exposure to the market. I am almost 100% long this market. I've got 17 long swing positions on. I'm pretty heavy, honestly, in these positions across the board. It's a bull market. For where I am right now, for my rules, for my level of exposure with my portfolio, I need to be extremely selective on putting on new overnight long risk that's going to last for anything longer than an intraday trade or maybe a 2-day trade. So I have no regrets that I'm not in Roblox in the mid-70s. I have no regrets at all. I will never be able to capture every movement in every stock in the market unless I start trading irresponsibly. And if I start trading irresponsibly, it's going to catch up to me in the long run. With that said, to answer the other part of your question, do I ever buy like a feeler in an area where I really like the stock and then just give that feeler a lot of space while I look for the area to size up? Absolutely, that's something I do. But when you're doing that, sizing is really important, especially if you've got leverage or capital access. Like for the most part, with the capital access that we have, that many of us here have as professional traders, you can't have any type of real size and just let stocks go against you and against you and against you. Your account's going to blow up very fast. So you have to know and assess your personal account size versus the amount of capital that you're putting into that position. And for myself, I know that I can afford to buy very small positions and let them go sometimes very large amounts against me while I wait for my spot to be able to really size up. And it can be worth it for me to do that, to have that small position on as that feeler, because then I become really focused on it, and I'm able to garner information from that feeler position that can help me to understand when the time is actually right to size up. But again, the key here is position sizing. And it's not right for everybody. Some people are dealing with small accounts. If you're dealing with a small account, you can't even buy a feeler and have it go against you. But if you've got a large enough account, you got large enough risk capital behind you, you can have that little feeler. And sometimes I'm up so much money short AMC that the amount of stock that I have on right now, which is a very small amount, I can give this to all-time highs. I can give this to definitely $60, $65, and I'm still going to be positive short AMC. So that's why I'm saying to you guys with AMC here after hours, I don't want this thing trading in the mid-30s. I either want this thing to go to $20 because that's the profit target I have on my remaining small now short position, where I can get out and talk about how awesome I am. I was able to catch that entire move. Or I want this thing to rip up. Even if that means I'm going to lose some P&L on my smaller AMC position, I don't care. I want this thing to go $10 higher from where it is so I can look at starting to short again. That's what I really want to do. So I absolutely do that. David asking about AMD. All right. Yeah, let's take a look at this AMD. I know a couple of you guys had a nice little day trade here early on in the day. AMD long, kind of off this low here as the stock hit the 80 MA on the daily chart for the first time after its insane parabolic move. So that was a good little trade that some of you guys had. Made new highs and then just got just kind of grinded lower for the rest of the day and eventually broke lows. So for people who took that trade today, nice job. I'm sure you all made money in it, especially if you were trailing it properly and As long as you weren't absurdly greedy, it would almost be impossible to lose money in this from where you guys were communicating that you were buying it. So it's a really good job there. As far as AMD goes, if you remember when I was shorting it at $122 here on this day, and a bunch of you guys were in this trade with me, this was a 2-day trade for me. I really just had a profit target to 110, and I mentioned that I was being extremely not greedy on that profit target because it's a counter trend, counter momentum name. As a fantastic rule, it is always much more beneficial for you to be greedy when you are with the trend, with the momentum. That's when you want to be significantly more greedy. If you are ever trading counter trend or counter momentum, which is something I generally don't suggest, it's a very difficult game. It's much more difficult and much more stressful than just being with the trend and with the momentum. Doesn't mean I don't do it. I did do it with this AMD. I will do it in, you know, levels of big extremes. Even though I was just looking for a move to 110, I mentioned that this thing could come back. This stock could go back to $100 if it wants to. You know, the 21 EMA at this point, the lower band of equilibrium is at $100.71. So for this thing to pull back to $100, or, you know, tail through 100 and come back up and make a pivot after having this insane move post earnings from $90 to $122.50 in a handful of trading sessions straight up, to pull back to that area makes a lot of sense to me. I know Brant here in the VTF was talking about possibly looking for it, or maybe it was Josh, I don't remember, looking long at like the 105 area. Again, I'm still in no rush. If I see a signal I really like at 105, I might like to go long. Otherwise, honestly, my interest is more in like that 102.50, 103 area. Start looking at AMD to the long side, unless we get a really solid signal above that. So that's my thought process on it right now. It's giving no signal as of today's close. It closed very weak today into the 21 EMA on the daily chart. It's giving no signal as of today's close that, you know, we should be coming in and buying it necessarily tomorrow morning or something like that. Someone on YouTube asking about Zillow. Okay, we take a look at Zillow. I haven't looked at this stock in a while. Do not like this thing trying to get below $100. I can tell you that. You can even see here I scrolled out. This is another name that had a huge performance into that kind of speculative bubble in February that I discussed. I mean, you can just see this thing. It went from $100 to over $200 in a couple of months. So this stock only went up 100%. A lot of those other more speculative names that I've been talking about really went up like 300 to 700%. Plug, right? Plug move insane. Fuel cell insane. But anyway, back to Zillow. You can even see this Zillow made a bit of a head and shoulders pattern. Head and shoulders neckline was probably 124 or so. So that's broken down a little bit. Since then, this thing has tried to find some support around this 100 to 105 area. It has not been able to do that. It has not held up fantastically well. It actually broke $100 today. You would think on a day like today that it would perform really well, because even though I don't really consider this to be one of the speculative names in the same way as I consider a Plug or a Palantir to really be one of those speculative names, I don't really quite put Zillow into that category. It did have a 100% move on speculation over a couple months period of time. So when a lot of these other stocks had really strong moves today, this one couldn't do it. I don't know what happened here on Friday. I don't know if that was its earnings report or this is a high volume negative Maribozu. That's a bearish candlestick. So at this point in time, I do not like Zillow unless it can start getting back above 110. I wouldn't want to buy this. I wouldn't want to be involved in it unless it can get back above 110. You have to negate the negative Maribozu, which is something I spoke about in one of last week's afternoon meetings. So high volume, negative Maribozu with a high of 110.93. It's got to get above 110.93. You're able to do that. That means that anyone who is a long seller on this day, they're starting to have FOMO. They're potentially buying this thing back, or at the very least, they're not offered out, creating supply on the way up. And anyone who was a short seller on Friday on all this volume, they are out of the money and they're getting squeezed. So that's the technical supply and demand reason on why negating a Maribozu like this is important for your stock. So Zillow needs to get back above 110. Next here from Shane. Shane mentioned VSCO. Was it you who mentioned it in the morning meeting, Shane? That was a solid call out on that price target increase. You bought it around 61.50 at around 10 a.m. or so. Okay, yeah, this was a good little pattern in here. So if you're buying into this little pattern here around 10 a.m., this 5-minute shooter and up with the moving averages catching up, I like that a lot, actually. And it led to kind of new highs there, so I think that's solid. You're giving yourself to 60.71-ish. So the low of the last inside 5. That's definitely the right out. So you had about 80 cents risk. You quickly sold half of your position at 62.25 or so, 62.30. So just reading, that's for about 60 cents profit. No. Sorry, it's about 80 cents profit when you had 80 cents worth of risk. That's where you sold half your position. Perfect. So 1-to-1 kick on 50% of your position makes it so you have all your risk covered. You watched it closely. It held 62 for a bit and then sold out at 61.64. You didn't like the spread. Okay, so you got out early is what you're telling me. So you ended up being profitable in it. You were nervous about the spread being 25 cents to 50 cents. Would you have not sold the break even of 62? I traded below 60 before I woke up in the early afternoon. Yeah, so Shane, the first part of what you're telling me here is perfect. I love it. I love it. This is the stock woke up. It's in play. It's not trading with the market. Had a beautiful move. We know it had the price target initiation that went to like $100 and something by, I forget, JP Morgan or somebody. And then you have this nice technical 5-minute shooter here that you use as your execution, and it's right as the ADMA is catching up, so you cheated a little bit on the buy. You didn't wait for the break. Fine. You got the right stop loss in place. I love the 1-to-1 kick where you covered your risk. All of that, honestly, perfect. Perfect. And then you, on the way down here, seemed to jump out of it a little early, which actually made you profitable on the trade instead of break even on the trade, which I actually don't think is a good job, to be honest. And it's one of those things, right? One of those things about trading. You made more money than I think you should have in this position. I think that you shouldn't have made any money in this position, and you were able to, it sounds like, make some money in it. And I don't think it's a good job. You shouldn't have made money in this. Shame on you. Shame on you for making money in Victoria's Secret. And again, the reason I'm saying all that, obviously, I would always rather you make money than lose money, or make money than not make money. But I just don't think that letting the spread scare you out of a position when you already have the risk on breeds consistency. I don't think that getting out of the stock somewhat randomly in that area breeds consistency. I don't think you had any tactical reason to be able to raise a stop loss in this stock at this point. I think you should have kept your original stop loss in it. I think you should have gotten stopped out on it when it broke that low, and that you should have missed the rest of this move if you didn't find a new entry, and you should have been break even on it. And I think that would be the ideal good job on the stock. So that is my thought process for you, Shane. Next here from James on Peloton. Thoughts on Peloton? It bounced nicely today, but not with great volume. Definitely a company that I love. I also, here's a similar to Zillow, but different, very different type of company. Do not like this negative Maribozu from Friday, albeit not on huge volume. But you got this resistance, multi-levels of resistance here. I'm not looking to come back involved into Peloton at this point until it can start getting back above maybe like 122. This is just too hard to come in and buy tomorrow into the moving averages. You got resistance number 1 at like 121, resistance number 2 at like 123, resistance number 3, which is the big resistance, is kind of a broad area between like 125 and 127.50. I don't think we want anything to do with Peloton right now until it wakes itself up and starts proving itself a little bit better. Though it did have a good day today. Does it? A position disclosure says AMC long and AMC short? No, it doesn't. It just says AMC short. Maybe you're talking about in the VTF, but if it says that in the VTF, it's some sort of technical mistake. WA27 here giving us a great definition of animal spirit. Reckless emotion over method. That's a good one. That one is worth writing down. Next here, Ariel asking about Wynn. Yeah, so Wynn Resorts, we actually called out as a team for a long trade on Thursday of last week. Both Wynn and LVS were massively oversold. There was a ton of technical indicators that had been signifying that it was a buy. But just because a bunch of technical indicators signify a buy does not mean we want to come and buy. We still need the actual technical setup to do it. And the upgrade of Wynn Resorts, I forget by who, someone came in and upgraded Wynn, one of the sell-side analyst firms, on Thursday last week. So a bunch of us looked at it and took it as a long trade on this day versus like the pre-market low, or the opening low, or the previous day's low. There are 3 different outs there. And it gave a great oversold bounce back into equilibrium, which again is technically all you can expect from it. Now the next question that we want to know is, can an oversold bounce turn into a reversal? The answer is maybe. It's always low probability, but it's still a maybe. But there's certain things that we want to see from this stock in order for that retracement higher to become a reversal. One thing that we want to see is a potential higher low. So usually when you're going to get that type of reversal, the stock actually gets stuck, usually for several days, kind of in this moving average area, the space between the 8 and 21 EMA. Maybe it tails above it, maybe it tails below it, but usually somewhere in that process it creates a higher low, and then that higher low leads to a higher high. Once that happens, you have a confirmed reversal. You went from a pattern of lower highs and lower lows to a pattern of higher highs and higher lows. This is not doing it necessarily textbook right now, but it is still okay. So obviously you have the absolute low here, you had another potential lower high, maybe today is a higher low. So I actually think that today's low is something that's really worth watching. Now we need to watch this most recent high from Friday, which is $100.80, and we need to watch today's low, which is $93.59. I would love for this thing to hold today's low over the course of the next couple of trading sessions, but not necessarily break this high. Maybe get back above the 80 EMA, but build out a little bit more of a wedge type pattern, and then have that wedge break up after these moving averages can kind of flatten out a little bit, and then we would have more of a confirmed reversal where we're going from a pattern of lower highs and lower lows to a pattern of higher highs and higher lows. So that's what I want to see. So interesting day today from Wynn. I think it's definitely something we want to continue to keep on our radar. And if anyone still has a percentage of their position from Thursday of last week, this is productive price action. This potential higher low is definitely what you want to see from it. Cool. Gabriel asking about some AMC stuff here from after hours. I'm not really sure. Yeah, AMD was easier money that other day for sure. Someone in YouTube is asking about Micron. Yeah, so Micron, obviously, in the semi space, we started looking at this thing on the break of this kind of descending channel on one of these days here. I think it was, yeah, AMD. We were looking at AMD to top out here on August 4th. And one of the things I remember liking was that stocks like Micron and NVIDIA were breaking out of patterns on that day. So I interpreted that on August 4th as potential money rotation, which is actually, if you're bullish on the semiconductor space, that's actually what you would want to see more than anything else, is some money come out of AMD, but as it's coming out of AMD to start coming into Micron and NVIDIA, so you just kind of get internal money rotation within the semi space that can breed a continuation of the bull market in semiconductors, even as AMD comes back from its ridiculous price. So Micron is a company that I like. I think it's got more value to it, like from a fundamental perspective, than like an AMD or a NVIDIA. Though the flip side of that argument is you can, try to say that AMD and NVIDIA justify those higher valuations because of the growth that they have. But I like Micron. It broke out of this descending channel that it was in, had a nice multi-day up move, created a little resistance here around $83. And now today, yeah, it had a weak day today, maybe a little bit weaker than I would have liked. But again, it was a sloppy day from a price action perspective on the indices, but it was extended. All it did was pull back to the 80 MA. I would have preferred for it to not close on lows, but I think this thing looks good. I think it looks fine. From a big picture perspective, I think the stock needs to hold above, I want to say like 78.50. I mean, you got your 21 EMA at 78.84. So maybe we don't want it to close below the 21. It could pierce below the 21 and come back up, and that'd be fine. I think from a closing perspective, we just don't want Micron getting back below 78.50, and then there's something wrong with it. I think this price action is conducive to higher price action. You know, big up move over a short period of time. This thing went from 72.50 to $83. Had 2 days of time correction. Today it had a little bit of price correction. That's all fine. Let's get this thing to pivot back up either tomorrow or the next day and start going after this $82, $83 resistance again. But yeah, I think Micron looks decent big picture right now. Just need some more time. Speculator asking me what did I see to enter AMD. Yeah, so AMD. So you can actually refer because we can do this now, Speculator, to my afternoon meeting on YouTube from August 4th, where I went over AMD in detail, utilizing the 5-minute and 15-minute chart, talking about what I was seeing in it on that time frame. But basically, it was the volume and the extension were the big picture signals. Tops and bottoms in parabolic moves usually happen as volume maximizes. So what I want to see here is huge extension along with volume maximization. And it was the opening volume on that day was just so insane that's what really put it on my radar. And I think I even said in that morning, I was like, oh, I don't know about shorting this stock. It's got so much momentum, but the volume was just so insane. So I put it on my radar. And again, trading counter trend and trading counter momentum is really difficult. So again, go back and watch that afternoon meeting. It's in YouTube. But I tried this a couple of times here. I had like 3 or so break-even trades on this. And then we basically saw a big seller come in on the tape. It's funny because just on the afternoon meeting prior to that, I was kind of poo-pooing over tape reading, even though it is something that people generally consider me pretty good at, that I'm pretty good at. Tape reading, I think, is only important in certain circumstances. And, you know, it was kind of saw a big tape seller coming in at like 22.30. And then it put in a little bit of a 5-minute shooting star there, though it wasn't on the higher, smaller time frame volume that I would like to see. But, you know, with the seller there, I shorted this thing again around that 122 area, you know, using a stop at highs. And that one, which is like my 4th trade in this thing, they got like 3 break-even trades, and then it was the 4th one that it ended up really, really paying in a big way. But definitely check out that afternoon meeting if you weren't there for that one. Cool. Scrolling down here, seeing if I'm missing it. What's AMC doing? Nothing. Not what I want. I want that higher. Updating on Wish. Yeah, I spoke about Wish a little bit already earlier today. I spoke about it a number of times during the trading hours today as well through the VTF. Wish looks great today. It did great price action. $10 we know has been key for it. All the speculative names caught a big bid. 1050 is more of an absolute resistance level on it. The big question at this point in time when it comes to these names in general is if it's going to be a one-day phenomenon or if it's going to be continued bullish price action back into the speculative stocks. Wish needs to clear 1050 on a closing basis. That's that next resistance level. And we need to see continued strong price action in those stocks. In here? Oh, I do. Huh. Sorry, that's a typo. Sorry about that, Robert. I gotta delete that. Typo in there. Sorry about that one. All right. Anybody else? Tilray? Yeah, Tilray, you know, was one of the names that I have in my speculative list that when a lot of those other things were ripping, this didn't look as good. And I love that it caught up. I love that it caught up. Let's start clearing this like $15 area until Ray. It starts looking better. Same thing though. We want to see if the money flow into speculative names continues. Morgan Stanley, yeah. So Morgan Stanley's been the best bank ever since the stress test, and they announced just the biggest buyback and the biggest dividend increase of all the banks. This has been the leader in the space. XLF above 37, I love. So XLF is looking better and more bullish than it has been. TLT getting hit back down and breaking this ascending trend. Super bullish for the banks. And Morgan Stanley is your leader. We spoke about a long in Morgan Stanley on Friday versus $98. It's fantastic. The only problem in Morgan Stanley now is it's 4 up days in a row and it's getting extended. And banks tend to not be momentum names. So I don't want to come in and buy Morgan Stanley tomorrow at 101 with an ADMA at 98. $3 of extension in Morgan Stanley is like $10 of extension or $15 of extension in some of those more speculative type names. Just not how these stocks tend to trade. So I think Morgan Stanley looks great. I think XLF looks great. At this point, they need time and they need to reset up. 3 speculative names that are up way a ton after hours. Yeah, Triple D, so they had earnings. Looks like that's stellar. FSR up huge here after hours. And AMC, I want this AMC up more. Yeah, so same thing. You know, let's see if these animal spirits, come alive in these speculative stocks again, because it'll create really good price action when August is normally a boring month, guys. Don't be surprised if you hear a lot from me in the morning meeting on, you know, not too much to do today, let's be defensive, unless the price action tells us otherwise, because these stocks start waking up. I would love for an exciting August. All right, everybody. See everybody tomorrow. Have a great night, and we'll get back at it then.